Welcome to Wealthing Talks. I am your host, Alicia Castillo Holley, bringing you real-life conversations from Silicon Valley or somewhere around the world. We will talk about disruptors, angel investments, venture capital, and of course, family offices. Join me along with my children, their families, friends, disruptors, and investors as we explore the fascinating world of creating wealth in a completely different and authentic way. Thank you, everyone. It's such an honor, a pleasure to have Payel here in the podcast. I met her through another group. She's doing amazing things in Africa, but she's here in the US. Payel, thank you so much for being here with us.
Oh, thank you for having me. You're amazing. So it's great to be in good company.
Good. So let's start with what brought you here? How
Yeah.
come? What led you to do what you're doing now? Was that a straight path or how did it work?
Yeah. No, so I have a classic immigrant story. So I moved to the US from India when I was 14 to get into Berkeley. Thank God I got in because that would have been a big upset if I didn't. But my career has been very straight since then. Economist by training, and I started my career in traditional asset management in Silicon Valley. So I managed multi billions of North American assets. Primarily focused on profit maximization at scale. So that's what I'm trained to do. That's what I spend my entire 20 years doing. And then, over time, Alicia, I realized that, I know a lot about making capital grow, but I wanted to spend the next chapter of my life or my career in, maybe helping capital grow up, have it be more patient, more purposeful, more impactful, more longstanding, build resilience, things of that nature. So, yeah, so now I just do impact investing.
And you also have an organization. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so basically, I help nonprofits, foundations, endowments, anybody in the social impact venture space, even founders who want to make a difference in the world through their business or through their organization. I become either a donor or an advisor to them, and I help them with everything that I know, all the rigor that I learned, all the discipline that I learned in regular investment management. I help them with that information as needed for their organization. So one of my top priorities this year that I'm hyper focused on is an amazing US nonprofit for the last 40 years called FINCA International. They are a microfinance organization. They've been operating globally, providing microloans to primarily women, but really communities, underserved communities, underprivileged communities all over the globe. And they've grown from, handing out small loans from the back of a truck underneath a tree in Latin America to being a $650 million lending facility and a $350 million savings facility, a bank. So all those women and people that they gave small loans to ended up doing amazing things with that small loan and sending their kids to college, increasing their livelihood, and then having the ability to save money and grow their money and start businesses and tech startups and so on and so forth. So it's a wonderful organization. They even launched a venture capital arm in 2018 and did some balance sheet investing off of that. And now they're launching their latest fund. So these are the things that I help organizations with. The venture arm of a nonprofit, innovative investment vehicles so that we can catalyze more capital for these amazing companies and projects and people out in the world.
Wow, that's amazing. That's right, my alley. So I really, really love that. And I'm invested in two impact investing funds. One actually is a bank in Singapore for women, serving women in India. And the other one is a VC that I brought to Silicon Valley and is doing very well. She's into her second VC now in Nigeria. So I come from a developing country. I know that people in developing countries can do a lot with
Yeah.
very little capital. So That's really, really interesting. Did you?
Well, they have grit, and grit is something you can't teach someone. Grit is something, one, you're born with innately, and two, you develop naturally because
Mhm.
of your circumstances.
Yeah.
And so, as immigrants, both you and I can really share and respect grit,
Hmm.
because we both know that it's not something you can take for granted. And in fact, it's probably the biggest success factor for any entrepreneur or executive or business is grit.
That's absolutely true. And, I don't know if you know that, but I came to the US from Venezuela, where I was born and raised, although my parents are now Venezuelan, so it's a little bit more complicated than that. But there was a period where there was a bank crisis in '94,
Mhm.
and I lost all my money. And I had been extremely successful. I had a lot of savings because I was going to
Mhm.
continue my education when my kids. I was waiting till they were at a school age, and,
Yeah.
uh, and I lost all my money. And I still decided to come here, and I had two kids, two suitcases, and $600. And then the kids wanted their pillows and their toys. So
Oh.
I had to make a decision whether I buy a suitcase or I put them in a box.
Mm.
The picture that we have when we arrive in the US is me sitting down, waiting to be picked up with two big cardboard boxes. The kids were jumping around because
Yeah.
that's what kids do. They're happy.
Yeah.
And two suitcases, and all I had was $600, and I said, I need to make it work. And I had no way of returning. There was
Yeah.
no return ticket. And that's yes, and that's what immigrants do. But it's not, I don't think you see how hard it's going to be. It's just you say, okay, I'm just going to go. And that's
You
it.
just do it.
You
You
just do
just lean
it.
into it. You don't even know it's going to be hard, because at that point you're just seeing the opportunity.
Yeah.
You're seeing, I need to get out of the situation, or I need to have a better life for my family or for myself. It's the opportunity that drives you. It's not the worry or the strain,
Yeah. You don't
right?
have time. You don't have time to
Yeah,
worry because you have time.
exactly.
Yeah. You don't have time to worry because you don't have time to
Yeah,
feel sad because you're like, okay, how do I get another dollar to feed my
yeah,
family, to pay for this? And that's so true.
yeah,
And I don't think people go and say, I am going to put myself in a difficult situation. It just
yeah,
happens. Okay, I'm in this situation, what I can do with
yes,
that. And so
yes.
yeah, so that's really interesting. I haven't thought about that. That's really interesting. Is there
It's
any,
like, we always talk about exits, right? As VCs or PE folks, right? We're always focused on exits. What are your exits? What's your track record? The biggest human exit is these decisions. Like when we have to know we have to leave, like moving countries or cities or schools. It's not easy, right? Leaving your family, your heritage, your culture, your support structure, your comfort zone behind, learning a new language, perhaps a new culture, assimilating, still holding on to your roots. These things are like real human exits into the future. And I think I've learned so much from people who have had remarkable stories like yours, like this journey, this decision, this inflection point that then takes them to a whole new future that they couldn't have even imagined or dreamt of. I mean, that's, I think, so inspirational and so apropos and relevant when we think about business and exits and, portfolios and returns.
yeah, I haven't thought about that, but I don't know if you know that I've lived in 9 countries. And
Yeah,
then I go to another country, and then after a
yeah,
while, it's like, how did I, why? Why did little things like where you're gonna have your haircut, uh,
yeah,
where the groceries. I mean, it's like, oh no, I'm doing this again. But I didn't realize how relatable that is to an exit. But that is absolutely true because a lot of times founders don't
yeah.
know when it's time to exit.
Yes,
So they have offers and they decide no, and they don't know,
because it's scary.
and a lot
Change is scary, and growth is scary,
of
right?
uncertainty.
Yes, uncertainty. And I think once you take that jump, that leap, and you make a decision, I think most people rise to the occasion and they make the most out of it. So,
Yeah, I think so. I also think that at least my kids, they were very flexible, and
yeah.
yeah, and
What a
then they.
blessing, right? That they saw you go through that phase and were flexible and saw the beauty in that, right?
Oh, we were always having fun. I
Yeah.
I had so many jokes about, sleeping in the floor, lying to them that this is the way people sleep in this country because they were kids. And then, of course, when they see their friends say, but they have beds.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. No
Yeah.
kidding. I didn't know that. But anyway, yeah. So now we laugh about that. But let me
Yeah.
go back to you. Is there anything that you had learned in the last 20 years that you wish you knew? If you were to write yourself a letter,
Yeah.
is there
Oh, I
anything,
love
you
this.
know what? You know what? You should know this. Have this in mind. Is there anything?
If I had to go back 20 years to a younger self and write a letter that you should know this, or like I'm even thinking what I would tell my daughter, who's only 12 now, I would probably say don't, just coming from money management and coming from Wall Street, coming from investment management arena, I think what I wish I would have known then was not to measure returns or success by just dollars and cents and percentages. I think there's so much more to success. And I wish I'd known to measure returns by dignity or by sustainability. I didn't know those things. I mean,
Oh,
ESG
return
is
by
very new, right? It's all very new now in the last 10, 15 years. And even though then it goes ebbs and flows. But yeah, I would say that capital, to me, capital always grew quarterly. And I wish I knew 20 years ago that, you know, when capital grows up, it actually learns patience and resilience does not grow quarterly. So to have a little bit longer view and not to look at things so in such a bifurcated way and to think a little bit deeper. I mean, think about it this way. You talked about women, right? We were just earlier talking about people that invest in women or women founders, or if you have, you want to work with founders that are deaf or that are blind or that are underprivileged or what have you. Um, if you ignore women in your portfolio, you're ignoring half the market, but you're completely ignoring most of the resilience you could get out of those dollars. So I wish I knew those subtle things. And I think it's taken me 20 years to figure it out.
I love that. I mean, this is why I love this podcast because I learned so much. And I I never heard that thing about the return on dignity.
Yeah, somebody taught me that, and I'll tell you who. It was Alan Chetrit. He founded Hugo Boss. He's been a wonderful friend and mentor for many, many years. And he's the one who taught me this word that P&L stands for profit and loss, but also purpose and legacy. And I won't forget this. This is years ago. And when we were talking more about this, what does P&L mean to you? And he was talking about how it means purpose and legacy to him, not just profit and loss. We started talking about returns, like scaling dignity. And like, I I loved it. I felt like it resonated with who I was, with my soul. Like,
Mhm.
I was like, yes, let's scale dignity. Because if you can scale dignity, everything else is following. You're getting the returns, you're managing the risks, you're diversifying, you're creating impact, you're growing and scaling everything else. Dignity is that last bit, but we don't tend to focus on that last bit. But it's super cool. I think it's super refreshing.
And you were the one that came up with that return on dignity?
I don't know if I came up with it. Like I just love. I've just put these words together because it resonates with my soul. I've never seen a book or anything written. I'm sure everything we know, someone else already thought of or made up. So I can't say I've read it somewhere. But return on dignity it resonates with who I am. Like my soul resonates with that vibration. Like my next 20 years of my life, that's what I want to work on. I want to work on things that have a high return or can scale dignity. That would be really cool.
No, that's fantastic. I love it. We're developing a project called Wealth in Legacy
Okay.
that is one of our members brought it up 2 years ago, and she said, "I want you to manage my estate," and I'm like, "I don't want to manage your estate. I don't know how to do that." And then recently we started talking about that. I build my small family office, and I always have a space for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to them to see how we can incorporate that because that's really important. And because I've been very rich and very poor.
Yeah.
And having money has nothing to do with happiness. So
Yes.
people tend to think that there's this study about this threshold of happiness. So really money doesn't give you happiness.
Yeah.
What happens is that worrying about money distracts you from
Yes.
enjoying life.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
the biology of happiness
Yeah.
is a biology. So from the mammals, it comes from the pre-event. That's the
Yeah.
peak of happiness. When you're just sitting down to have a meal, when you're planning a vacation. I mean,
Yeah.
we are cognitive people, so we can think.
Yeah.
But the truth is that people who are very poor, they're so
Mm-hmm.
grateful for so many things that
Yeah.
they can actually be experiences happiness more often than people who have more predictable things because there's
Yeah.
nothing exciting about that.
Yeah.
But I also know that money gives you choices.
Yes.
And that is the area of dignity that I never thought about until now
Yeah.
that I'm talking to you. And in some cases, founders are so pressed for showing results that
Yeah.
they lose their soul. I call it the
Yeah.
soul. Don't lose your soul. But in reality, don't lose your dignity. Do the
Yes.
best you can. And
Yes.
as investors, we don't do a good job by embracing the challenges with them.
I
It,
totally agree. I wish we as investors thought more about dignity when it comes to business decision making or investing decisions. Because, like you said, money does not guarantee you dignity, and lack of money doesn't take away your dignity. But money does give you optionality, right? And so, how do you optimize your situation so you can maximize your dignity? Should be our life, all of our life goal as investors, as business owners, as founders, as parents. I mean, one of um, a wise person once said to me, we all chase happiness. What we should be chasing is harmony. It's two different things. And I've always thought about that. Like, dignity falls in that harmony category.
yeah, yeah.
It's not pure happiness, it's a different level, it's a different strata of achievement, I feel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and then there's the eudaimonic happiness and
Yeah.
eudaimonic happiness. So there are two types. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I wrote a book about happiness. So I really, but I studied the biology of happiness
Yeah.
because biology is my thing. How do they do? And so you see the birds chirping and the birds splashing water. They're happy, but it's content. It's not
Yeah.
happy. So it's so interesting. But the dignity thing, I'm gonna talk about this for a long time. This is so amazing. And actually, this is the reason why I did the podcast because I
Yeah.
want to bring some more humane
Yeah.
approach to, hey, I'm a venture capitalist. I
Yeah.
don't need to be a mean person. I
Yes.
make money, but
Yes.
and I'm money first, but not money only. But
Yes.
this thing about dignity, it applies to everything because there's some investors that put so much pressure, and
Yeah.
there's some investors that just wiped out the equity of the founders, and then some founders that get obsessed with money. And yes, money is important,
Yeah.
but and people say you cannot live without money, and yes, you can. I lived in countries where you don't need money to live.
Yeah.
I have, but what you don't have is choice.
Yeah.
So but this is great because even when you don't have money, if you have dignity, you are rounded, you're
Yes.
grounded. And I just love it because that's the main reason why I invest is to get innovation.
Yeah.
Also is to, people can do so much with their resources. So yeah, uh, I got completely off track here.
No, no, but okay. So since we're off track, I'll throw you a little bit more off track, but in a good way. So
But
watch this movie. I'm a shameless plug for a documentary. It's an investigative journalism documentary called The Grab. It won an Emmy just recently. A friend, Nate Halverson, who you will see tomorrow at the FINCA Gala, is going to be there. Hopefully, he's not taken away on a journalism assignment, but he's expected to be there. I mean, it won an Emmy, and I'll tell you why. It's about bad investors and bad actors going into countries like Zambia and taking away people's dignity. So it's the reverse of what we're talking about. What we're talking about is, as investors, how can we give dignity? How can we invest in dignity? How can we restore dignity? And that movie is shedding light on the exact opposite, which is people, bad actors, using brute force and violence, corrupt governments to take away people's dignity, their land rights. I mean, I just mind blowing stuff. So since we are off track, watch the movie. It's called The Grab. It's epic, and it won an Emmy.
Oh, I don't have a TV, but I'll figure out a way to watch it. I'll figure out. I mean, this is great. My dad was a romantic socialist, and people forget about that.
Yeah,
People now see, oh, socialism is bad and capitalism is good, or capitalism is
yeah,
bad and socialism is good. I have my own philosophy that they're two sides of the same coin, and they can't see each other because they're on the opposite side. But we
right.
cannot advance without capitalism, but we cannot advance well without socialism. We just need to figure out how to, and that's extremely difficult.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
the balance.
it would be easy to do. But we lost. We had a farm when I was a little kid, and we lost the
Mm,
farm because of corruption. And my dad never recovered. And then he said, not doing anything with money. We didn't talk about money in my household, in my family growing up. Money was something even people talked about.
yeah,
And it took me until I was 35 that I decided to do an MBA. And my dad told me when I said I'm going to do an MBA, he said, "You're going to sell your soul to the devil."
yeah,
And
yeah,
and I had to rethink how this worked.
yeah.
But my philosophy, that's why I have wealthing, because you create wealth and you have to share it. There's no way to create it without involving others.
Yes.
That dignity thing, that is yeah, that is the best. So thank you for telling us that. I have one last question for you, and this is right along the lines that we're talking about. Um, when I was 13, I fell off a horse and I was in coma. I died, and I came back
Uh-huh.
4 days later. And I never took life for granted. I have like a second life now. So I'm always very excited. Another day. But I usually think about the time where I'm no longer here. And
Yeah.
what is that essence? What is that thing that is going to be that I'm going to leave behind? Have you thought about what is Payel as legacy?
Mm.
Who are you when you're no longer here? What are you leaving?
So we talked about the whole P&L thing, right? That Alana always told me, like L stands for legacy. So I've always thought about this because he always made me think about your personal P&L, like as a human being, what is it? And I like, to me, look, I've experienced so many things like you, high AUMs, an IPO, launching funds, raising capital, closing deals. Um, but that's my work. That's not my legacy. That's the W in my life. So what's the L? What's the legacy? For me, I don't know. It would be, so what, to me, legacy is what endures or remains after the capital that you've put in has done its work. That to me is legacy. So I want to count my legacy in that metric, is what is still lasting after the capital's already been spent, deployed, put to work, gone, finished. Now what's the impact, and how many generations does this effect last? It's not in dollars or percentages or size. I don't know. It'll come down to dignity and sustainability. How sustainable is the dignity that my work has created? And I know that in certain countries, continents, emerging markets, frontier markets, so little goes so far.
Yes.
And that's why I invest in emerging markets and frontier markets, because I feel like a little bit can go a long way. If I had to explain to my daughter who's 12, what, you know, my legacy that I want to leave behind or whatnot, I would tell her, just remember that mom always believed that resilience isn't optional. Like being resilient against no matter what the world throws at you or what crisis comes or what shock hits the system, climate change, it doesn't matter what gets thrown at you, resilience isn't optional. So anything that builds resilience in yourself and in others is worth the capital, it's worth the time, and that's a life well spent.
That is precious. Thank you so much. This has been such a gift, and surprise. I love this podcast because I learned so much and I connect at a different level. And I am just so fortunate that I'm able to bring your words to other people that just learn so much from it. Thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you for bringing this amazing stuff to the world. Everyone's thoughts. I've been listening to your podcast, um, and big supporter, and you're awesome. You rock.
We all do. We all do. So thank you. So this is why I love doing this podcast, because now I got this new concept about not growing capital, but growing up capital, making it more long-term, more sustainable, more efficient. But I really, really enjoy the concept of dignity and providing dignity to people. And it's not just providing dignity to people that are poor. There's some people who are extremely wealthy that are running these very, very stressful organizations with high impact. And the one thing that you need to keep is your honor. But I always thought about, honoring your word. I never thought about just, keeping your dignity and growing dignity, not only for the bosses and the executives but also for the investors, the other employees. And I just thought this concept was absolutely amazing. So I'll see you in the next episode. Yours in Wealthing, Alicia Castillo Holley. Thanks for tuning in to our Wealthing Talks. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. To stay connected, visit us at wealthing.com. This is Alicia Castillo Holley, your host, and until next time, yours in Wealthing.